This is a process video of how I drew the Mega Man versus the Robot Masters from Mega Man 1. Um, I'm just going to kind of talk about what I did and my thought process, and hopefully someone can learn something from it. Um, so right here, I'm just trying to figure out the basic pose of Mega Man. Everything's sped up super fast, obviously, as you can see, just because of time. This piece, I believe, actually took me a couple hours just to draw. I want to say about three or four, just because of all the time it took me to figure out, like, um, one, just gathering reference so that I knew what everybody looked like. So I have a general idea of what Mega Man looks like, but the Robot Masters, not so much. So just uh, started off, got all the reference I need, and started blocking in all the characters. At this point in the video, what I'm doing now is I am just tightening up my initial sketch. And as you can see, I'm making changes as I go. The first step, when drawing, is to just get your ideal on paper, and then once it's on paper, then make any tweaks or adjustments along the way. Don't feel like you have to be stuck in um, whatever the first at your first ideal. You know, there's that's why they made erasers. I rarely get everything right on the first shot anyway, and I find that I work better when I'm editing myself. So I'll do a couple passes on things. So at this point now, I'm starting to do my inking. So what I did, and this was all drawn in Procreate, I created a new layer separate from my sketch layer, and now I am trying to do the line um, art version of my piece here, and just picking the lines that I want to stand out in my piece, and to actually be the drawing itself. And I'm not really going in or trying to like fill in blacks yet. I'm not too concerned about it. I am thinking about it, and you'll see me do it here and there. But for the most part, I'm just worried about making sure that everything is working in the piece. Like I'm overlapping where I need to overlap, and that there's watching out for tangents and things like that. It's very important to make sure that you're creating those overlaps to help give the piece depth. Um, and That's something that I really do concentrate on a lot and try to be aware of. Um, Now here I'm after the line art's done. Now I'm filling in the blacks here. Uh, and for this piece, I wanted to have it be more of a I guess cartoony, or like more like promotional, like kind of game art. So I wasn't really, you know, trying to make it super dark with the shadows and stuff when I was laying in the blacks, because I knew I was going to color it. So I left a lot of space for the color to do some of the actual light and shadow. I just when spotting blacks, I try to just think about the feeling I'm going for, and if it's something that the piece is really dark, I want it to be very moody, then I'll add more black. But in this case, I wanted it to be much more um, uh, lighter feeling to it, so I went very light on my blacks. But anyway, this is the first part of the drawing I did in Procreate, which is a great app. I love it. Um, but I'm still not the best at coloring in it. I'll color in it sometimes, but it's just so much faster for me to go through and do it in Photoshop. Um, Photoshop just has such a great amount of tools, and I've used it for so long. It's just easier for me to color in it. So here, what I'm doing is I'm flatting the art, and what all flatting does is it just helps me to separate all the pieces of in the art, so that I can easily pick them with the magic wand or drop colors on quicker. So uh, the first part was to I created a new layer. Um, well, first I brought my artwork into Photoshop. I set my inks layer to multiply, and then I locked it just in case, I don't want to accidentally color on my ink layer. And then underneath it, and I know it's a little bit hard to see in the video because my layer menu is really small. I created a new layer under it, and that's the layer that I call, I named flats. And the first thing I did was I dropped a solid color that's not white on the background. It's just something about if there's like um, pure white, it, it it makes it you know makes it stand out a lot. So I usually go with like a gray or something like that, just to give my eye something to work with when I'm dropping other colors on there that's it's not white. And I'll save. I will use white eventually in my pieces, but I usually save it last, or for the the something that I really want you to focus on, or um, an intense highlight or something like that. But I mean, at this point in the piece, I'm pretty much done with my initial flats. So, or my first pass, where I've kind of went through and I picked out the different characters. So now they each have their own individual color, and it'll be easier for me to change colors uh, after that, um, or when I'm adding color. But anyway, I'm not sure what I was doing there. And okay, now we're at the point where I am starting to color the individual characters, and so it's more flatting. And what I'm doing is I am separating the different parts, because the whole character is not blue gray or whatever. Um, so started with the face, and then I'm just, like I said, each individual part. Um, what I'll do is I'll uh, just kind of break it out so it'll be easier for me to change the colors later. And this is it can be very time consuming. A lot of times what I do is I'll have someone else do the flats for me, just as a time saving um, mechanism. Uh, Obviously, it's something that I pay for. Like I'll pay a couple bucks to an artist, that does this all the time, and it just saves me time. So what they'll do is they'll do exactly what you're seeing me do here, um, and then they'll send it back to me, and then I can get going right on to like the color phase where I worry about making things the exact colors I want them, and lighting and stuff like that. And it's actually a really big time saver. And depending on the piece, if it's like something really complicated, I usually go that route, just because it's flatting can be a little boring at sometimes. But it's just something you got to learn, especially if you want to do everything on your own. Just makes things um, a lot easier when you're coloring. At least for me, in this style that I like to color in, which is I guess it would be like I do like a cell shaded style, like more of an animation type of coloring. But anyway, again, I'm moving on, and I'm just picking out the different pieces of the different characters, and just bringing the colors out. Now, you see, like since I flatted it originally, now I don't have to be as accurate with my lasso tool. Um, like when it's hard to see at this point because we're zoomed in on his head. But when it comes back up, I'll mention it again. But and even in this stage where I'm picking the individual colors for the different parts of the bodies, um, I won't always try to get the exact color that I'm going for. I may end up changing it. Again, this is all just flatting and basically getting set up to uh, to really drop in the colors that I want to have in the art or for each of the characters. Um, but yeah, so here's an example of what I was talking about with the lasso. Since I had changed the colors or flatted them solidly, I was able to just make a big loop around the face area, and then just paint bucket a color in there, and it didn't affect the white around Iceman's face because I had flatted it, and the paint bucket would just stop the color right where it met with the other color, and that's a big time saver, and um, that's why you put in all the hard work to flat everything in the first place. Now, again, just still working on picking all the different pieces out. Um, and then, so like I learned how to color this way from just watching other videos like on YouTube. And and I also took a course, a comic coloring course. I paid for it. I think it was by K. Michael Russell, I believe. He's got a YouTube channel about coloring comics. It's really awesome. It's a lot of information on it, and a lot of the stuff is just free information. Besides what he does have courses that you can purchase, so you can get like go to that next level, that next step of coloring, and um, he goes more in depth in those videos. And also, he provides you with tools that he uses, like different shortcuts and actions, which I purchased, and also helps speed up my process. Um, so one of those actions is to when I select like a certain color, and it's not really at this stage. I guess I'll mention it when I come to it, but you'll select a color, and then you'll hit like a keyboard shortcut, which on mine is F4, and it will separate a layer out so that you can color on it and won't affect any other part or any color that you're working on. So you can add your lighting and your shadow or texture or whatever, and then you flatten it back down, and it just really helps save time because then you're not worrying about cutting around uh, individual pieces. You can kind of isolate things a little bit quicker. But yeah, again, this is where you're putting in the work when you're coloring, or at least for me. The lighting part goes faster than this because I'm not. It's not as much, you know, worrying about cutting around like individual parts and trying to be very as accurate as possible. So at this point, I think I'm going to speed it up a little bit just to get through this because it's pretty much the same thing. I'm going around and I'm just isolating individual parts, making them either the color I want them or very close to the color that they're going to end up being, um, and getting it ready for the lighting stage. So I'm going to speed it up here and then we will get back into it in a minute here. Okay, so now that we've got everything, all the colors that we want, now's the point where I start to go in and actually, you know, work on the different colors, or the lighting part of the piece. Um, so here I'm selecting different areas and let's say like right now is the background, and I'm just trying to play with like some of the color to see what I like. I kind of desaturated it a little bit. I tried that out, the background, to try to make everything pop. At this point, I'm playing with different gradients just to add a little bit of something to the piece, instead of having it just be all like one flat color. And when I do my colors, I actually I like a more, um, I don't know if you'd call it like a retro-y style of color. Um, like I usually use like really like, sometimes they can be really hot colors, like I don't know, something you would see like in the 90s or something like that, I guess, like purples and pinks and stuff like that. I don't know. I just think it's very, I think it's cool looking, so that's why I do it. And you know, it's important to do things the way you like. So now here, what I did is, I'm doing something a little bit different than I normally do with like how I would select my shadows. I created a layer above, my my flat layer, and well, actually, first what I did is I locked my flats, and this is I'll lock my flat layer before I start doing the actual, coloring, where I'm adding the colors that I want. Uh, that way I can just reference back to it with the magic wand if I want to select, like whole areas of color without having to, you know, worry about like any of the other shadow layer colors or whatever. Anyway, and then I create I copy that flat layer onto a new layer above it. I name it colors, and then that's the layer I do all my colors on, or all my lighting. The next layer, on top, is the one that um, I'll create over the colors, and I will change my my color to black, and I'll change the layer mode to soft. I think it's soft light, and then I'll cut around, where I think the shadows are, or where I want them to be, and then I will fill that area. And what that does is it will create a shadow, um, uh, based off the layers that are below me. the color layer. So it won't be 100% black. It'll be just kind of a darker version of the color that's under it. And you can see that with Gutsman's hands right here. Um, it's just something that I picked up over the way. It works pretty good too. Um, Before, what I would do is I would select, like, I would select the color of whatever it is I was coloring, and then I would um, play with the hue and the light and darkness of it. So I would like lower the brightness and that hue saturation menu, and then I would you know change the color just a little bit to try to give it a little bit of a different color than what the actual object is. I don't know. It just gives it like a little bit more life to it. But this method seemed to work okay at this point. So um, again, it's much of the same thing. I'm just going around uh, selecting where I think the shadow should be in the lighting. Um, Lighting is very important in a piece. I don't always get it 100% right, and there's all kinds of methods. Well, I mean, not really all kinds of methods, and you just kind of pick where the lighting is coming from. And in this case, I was picturing the lights coming from the upper right-hand corner, coming down on everything. So that's why all the shadows are kind of focused on the low to the left, you know. And there's a couple parts in here where I'm thinking about actual objects in the art that could be creating light, and maybe would change up, that pattern of light and dark. So like with the electricity, that would create some light. So I kind of left the fingers a little bit lighter there. Um, also, also the flame. Um,
So I was saying also the flame there it affects the light. So the hand of Bomb Man doesn't really have a lot of shadow underneath it because the light from Flame Man or Fireman is lighting the bottom of his hand. Like I said, it's not 100% accurate, and I'm more worried about it looking, you know, close to right or feeling right to myself, than being worrying about being 100% accurate, because I'm just not, chances are that I'm going to be that. I'm probably not, but it's close enough. In the end, you got to be happy with it yourself. Because I mean, like I create art, to show people, but it's mostly for myself. I have an enjoyment of it. I like it. It's rewarding to me to make something, you know, out of nothing. Out of a blank piece of paper to create something. Um, and hopefully, it's something that other people like and find some type of enjoyment in too. But if not, then that's okay too. As long as it's something that you feel good about and are happy with, then that's all that matters. I'm never 100% happy with how everything turns out in my art, and just like most folks, you go back and you look at something and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Or this is trash or something like that. Like you kind of get can get down on yourself, because you're not as good as the next guy. But it'll come, you know. I know for myself. I've definitely seen. I can see progress. You know, it's taken a long time and a lot of drawing and trying different things and learning from different people. But I'm, slowly but surely, I've improved. I look at some of the stuff I drew, a couple years ago, or even like last year, and I'm just like, wow, I have really learned a lot. There's something else that I want to mention here is that when learning art and stuff in general, sometimes it's important just to try different things. You know, even trying to learn different art styles is important because you can learn something from everything. Essentially, I mean, you may not think it's going to be useful, but a lot of these little tricks and tips have come from studying like more realism and things like that. Like how light falls on things, how to use color or whatever. It's from studying and keeping my mind open to other processes. And I find that, when you like kind of pigeonhole yourself or, you just get like myopic where you're just thinking like, okay, this is the only way to draw, everything else is invalid, then you're really limiting yourself to the to your full potential. I mean, you it can't hurt to learn something new, that that's what I take away from that. And from different people, from as many different sources as you can. And then, you may not use everything that you learn from those, from that. You take what you need and leave what you don't. But anyway, I'm about to wrap it up here. What I like to do at the end here is I opened up like the color balance and kind of tweak things in it to get what I want. But so anyway, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch my process here on this Mega Man piece. And if you found any information useful in here, please consider subscribing. And that's it. Well, take care and thanks for watching.